Welcome to The Uncommon Truth. I'm Max Ehrman, and I'm here with Steve Orsillo and Vicky Orsillo, pastors of the Father's House Church. And the phone that was supposed to be off is on, but that's all right. We can change it. In the meantime, I wanted to revisit last episode because
you don't.
We ended off last episode.
We don't.
You want to sing it again for us?
No, we don't know each other. We don't know
Not that one.
He lives by the sea.
We can't start off a Christian podcast with that song.
Puff the Magic Dragon.
Yeah, start with
it's a
My
fairy
Bags
tale.
It's
Are
an
Packed.
LSD song.
My bags are packed. I'm ready to go.
You know who wrote that was John Denver. Did you know that?
Okay, yeah, it's funny
Hey,
you
did you know
mentioned
that John Denver wrote that?
I would like
You
to
knew
point
that,
out that
didn't
I'm wearing a.
We tried
a
to tell
Denver
him
Nuggets
last
hat.
week that John Denver wrote it, and he just wouldn't listen.
You
to
argued. You said it was Peter, Paul, and Mary.
So what
We
was
got-
the
matter with
Why
you,
did you
Max?
want to bring up your greatest failure?
You like to be,
huh?
you like to be wrong in
Oh,
front of all these
talk about
people.
an ambush here.
Ambush. Well,
I
we
wore
knew
my
you were
Denver Nuggets hat today. I'm from Denver, and I said,
coming. Well, you should be used to it. They get ambushed
leaving
all the
on
time.
a jet plane
They
was
almost never win.
John Denver, and they said they grilled me. Go back and
Grilled.
listen to the last 5 minutes of episode 53, and I got
at
grilled because
Peter, Paul, and Mary sang it.
That's
They
what
made
they
it
said.
popular.
They made it
And
popular.
I said, wasn't that John Denver? And
remember
Steve
him saying
said,
that?
Steve
No.
said, I quote, wow, you had a chance to hit it out of the park,
Oh, he
and you
quotes.
missed.
Oh, Steve
But you
said
did
that.
miss because he didn't make it famous.
No, I
wrote
said,
it.
who wrote it?
Oh, we had
No, you
misunderstood.
didn't.
Yes, you did.
No, you didn't.
Well,
We'll have to go
I've got
listen.
some evidence. We'll go back.
You
Maybe
go
we'll
back
go
and make
Yeah,
sure
you're
you
gonna have to
wrote.
prove it to me.
Maybe we'll go back. I did not expect these two were bickering before we start. I thought you'd be easy prey when,
Yeah.
and I hit record and you guys just
Turn
both
on you.
ambushed me.
We turned on you. You thought, oh, this is
Oh, I
going to
love
be
it.
good.
Did not
They're
see
gonna
that
turn
one
on
Gotta
each
love
other.
it around here.
Oh man, I guess you learned something new. So John Denver wrote
Rest in peace,
leaving
John.
on a jet plane, which is a little bit of a foreshadowing of his untimely demise. And then Peter, Paul, and Mary made it famous.
John
Correct.
Denver wrote a lot of songs.
He did.
Yeah.
So
Very talented man.
Oh, thank God I'm a country boy.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. That's what got to
Cakes
be
on
one
the
of
Griddle.
your,
Yeah.
That must be one of Max's favorites.
I like that song.
Yeah. Cakes on the griddle.
I wasn't a country boy until I lived 10 years in the middle of nowhere in Canada.
Now you're a country boy.
now-
Life ain't
now I
nothing
think
but
I
a
am.
funny, funny riddle.
Thank God I'm a country boy.
Woo!
Yep.
Yeah, that's a real classic one right there.
So now that we've cleared the air
John Denver.
on John Denver
And who
once again.
was right and who was wrong?
Right. I don't know if the air is clear. It feels a little bit less clear than
you
it
can,
was
you can
when
be
I
wrong
walked
if you
in.
want to.
Little
I don't,
smoggy.
We allow you to be wrong whenever you want to be.
Now that that's all done,
Yeah.
what's I'll put it under this rug here. We'll
Yeah,
just
there you go.
slide it under.
Slide it under the rug.
What's going
under
on
the
with
blood
you?
Of Jesus.
Yeah, what's going on with you guys? We got a church renovation happening. Steve's finger is on the mend, hopefully. What else is new?
Oh, the property's being developed and getting ready for a wedding.
Okay.
Just the love of Jesus Christ is just evident in our life everywhere we look.
People are soaring.
That's what we like. We look around at people like all of you and our life, and we just wonder how we got so fortunate. That's what's going on in our life.
That's great.
We just look around at all the blessings.
We're looking forward to the Corona revival.
The Corona
believe
revival.
they're gonna, from
Not
years
the
from now-
revival of the Corona Beer
No.
Company.
No,
Jesus
Revival
revival called the
of-
Corona revival of
Okay.
2000.
Yep.
What is this? 2020.
Yeah, 2020.
From years from now,
Where
people
we
are going to
gonna
talk
see
about I got
clearly.
saved in the Corona revival.
Yeah. When the world went crazy, tried to blow itself up, we found Jesus.
We
Yeah,
found
it's like
Jesus.
it feels
I
like what they
found
call
Jesus.
speaking of airplanes crashing, when an airplane crashes and they can't explain why, they call it overcome by events. There's just too many things happening
Yeah.
all at the same time. It's kind of what 2020 has felt like so far, right? It's like, oh, we can deal with that one, we can deal with that one, we can deal with that one, but they all hit in like
lot.
March, April, May, June, right at the same time. You're like,
Yeah, and
kinda
plus we
tough.
put Jordy's untimely demise in that with
oh
us.
yeah, it's
That's
just
been a gut punch.
It's been rolling with the punches, but the punches have been coming in.
Gut.
It's like the punching bag, the speed bag, and so far planet Earth has been a
And
speed bag.
it unhooked from the what it was hooked onto and hit us right in the face, basically,
Yeah,
right? You're hitting the
exactly.
speed bump. What are you looking at me like that for? We're talking about marriage day. You got to act like you
I
like me.
totally am lost.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Okay. Well,
Vicky started talking and I got lost.
He took a
I
nap.
fell asleep right
He fell
then. Yeah.
asleep.
This-
I have no idea what the two of you were talking about.
that's a great segue, Vicky.
They were
We
like,
are going to be
"Wah, wah."
we're going to be talking about marriage
Love
today,
and marriage.
and and it's kind of interesting. So we've been running with this format with the two of you guys exclusively on the Uncommon Truth, and we've seen our listenership go up because people love listening to you guys together.
Really?
Yep.
Even Steve?
What? Steve likes.
They like to listen to Steve.
They like to listen to both of you.
Steve does like to listen. She's a little confused. Steve does like to listen.
Yeah, Steve goes back and listens. So our listeners out there and our new viewers on YouTube have gotten a chance to get to know you guys and kind of.
Oh boy.
The cool thing is the two of you are the same whether we're recording and not, except for that ambush there, which got me a little bit.
Wow, we would ambush you off the air just like we would on the air. I don't know what you're talking about. How is that excluded?
That was great. His face was
How
like,
is that
what
excluded
here?
from the conversation?
I thought this would be wonderful. You two going after each other.
Good thing most of the cameras are pointed at you two, and this one over here is pointed at the back of my head.
You're like.
So that probably blushed.
Yeah, it was red.
I thought this time, about 10 episodes into having both of you guys on the show, I thought it'd be a good time to talk about marriage and specifically Christian marriage and what it looks like compared to the rest of the world. We've been going around talking about how the church has kind of been relegated to this non-essential position, right? We've been told we're non-essential, and we kind of came to the conclusion that it's because we've acted non-essential.
It's really good.
Right?
Yeah.
And we've also talked about how little difference there seems to be between ourselves as Christians in the broader church and the culture, right? And so we've had a few episodes about the necessity of being salt and light. And so when it comes to marriage and just relationships in general, I just wanted to know, like, how did that play out? And so that's what we're going to be talking about today. So the first question is, are we as Christians leading culture? Are we following culture? Or are we just sort of flailing around?
Oh, that's a Steve question, isn't
That's
it?
a Steve question.
That is right off the bat a Mr. Steve Orsillo question.
Yeah, so let me think about this.
I'm going to just fall asleep.
The honest truth, I'm going to bore you to death right now. I actually would like you to fall asleep. I might say some things you don't like.
Maybe you'll get a word in edgewise. Is that what you're saying?
Are you feeling sleepy right now? Yes.
I don't know. Are you talking?
Yeah. So, can you repeat the question?
Yeah. So, thanks, Vicky.
You're welcome.
I was wondering. So, as Christians, are we leading culture in marriage? Like, are people following us, or are we following the culture, or is it something in between? Like we're just flailing around.
I think that more of us are following the culture than leading the culture.
Okay.
I think that there's this worldwide move towards matriarchal control of the family unit.
That means a woman-led.
That means the mom-led. Mom is in control and leading. And though I don't believe in the subservience of women, I believe in a partnership. I don't think that men's voice is going away. I think there's whole nations that the men have no voice. We had people from a nation here on a P-61 trip, and the man at the fire, he just started weeping. He goes, "You men are still men.
You're allowed to be.
You're allowed to be men. You're allowed to be masculine, and you're not put down for it." And he was weeping.
Yeah.
And so I asked the people
He's
here.
like 55 years old.
Yeah, and I asked the people here from that country. I go, is he just rare? And they said, "Oh no, what he's saying is everywhere. My mom, her mom, his mom. The dads just kind of fade back as working suppliers, you know."
Yeah.
And they don't have much authority. And I'm thinking that most Christians are going in that direction because churches have been kind of like the men quit trying to lead churches. There's a real epidemic of the men falling back in the church and the women going forward. Mm-hmm. And then the purists want to say that women aren't supposed to lead. Well, what do you do when no one else is left to lead? And so it's a dilemma that doesn't really have a finger to point in fault.
Right, because the men are sort of abdicating roles a little bit, and women are sensing a vacuum in leadership.
Correct.
And so it's not like women are trying to seize control of the church, and it's not like
somebody's got to lead.
It's just kind of happening, right?
I've noticed in certain places that the women now don't want to give up their role. But quite often in counseling, when a marriage comes to crisis and there's been this lack of partnership and there's been this no leadership from the man, no standing up to be a man and to be a priest over the household, to be a spiritual leader of his household. You'll hear the woman will cry when I expose it. The woman just cry. I so longed for this. And sometimes it's like my next counsel is you have to, if you're going to want him to step up, you have to make a void for him to step into. And your habit is, your pattern is that you take over everything. You boss, you run, you push, you don't step back and let him lead on anything. And it's just not going to happen. This partnership's not going to happen without you want him to do it all. But now you guys have this pattern where you're going to have to change your pattern as well for him to be able to change his. And I think that this culture of Christianity, what we're doing in the church is we're following that. The world is doing this. Masculinity is wrong. It's called toxic masculinity. And femininity, the claim that the glass ceiling and the unequal pay has gone on so long that when it was going on, it was extremely unfair and not right. I believe it's going on less and less and less and less, but the division and the polarization of male and female is widening. It's not getting better. It's getting worse. And so in the world, a man trying to lead is looked upon like, you're abusive.
Yeah.
You're way out of line. And the church is just going along with it, right? And men need to be called back to leadership of what is the man's role. I believe in my marriage, I've always felt Vicky had a wonderful and awesome role, and I'd follow her anywhere in it. She had free reign, I've never withheld money or tried to keep her off the checkbook or out. It's yours. Just keep in mind, the bills are coming, kind of thing. And she had this great leadership role, and I never interfered with it. And then I had mine, and she never interfered with it. It wasn't until we saw a little bit of catastrophe that there started to be a lack of trust, and we had to work on that. We never even worked on it. We never even had a blip on the radar because we had a really strong idea partnership that you do these things and I don't question it, and I do these and you don't question it. And I believe that's what marriage is supposed to be. I lived my life. I worked myself half to death and would come home tired every night, and she would take care of me. And she would take care of all the things I needed to go back and work. And I had my role. She had her role with the kids, and she would save things for me. You need to talk to your daughter. She's doing these things, and, she'd save them for me. And that was my role as disciplinarian. And she mostly would leave it to me. And throughout the day, she would do the small things, the timeouts and everything. But even that, we never, ever even we never took a class, read a book. It was just a natural, I lived my life for her.
Yeah.
And when I would get home after a whole day with the kids, she would put her life out there for me. And I believe marriage is you serve your spouse, and you try with all your heart to make their life fulfilled and wonderful. You serve them. You bring them what you are, who you are. I go to work, and I know she can back me up on this. Never once in my life did I withhold anything from her, and or come home and demand anything in the household. I didn't need to, nor did I ever. I never looked for a weakness to try to gain some ground. And I think today that Christian marriages really do just float along with the world. And you float with the world, and you're going to end up with one upside down, miserable man and a very miserable woman. She doesn't want to be in that role deep in her psyche. She doesn't want to have all that control, and she doesn't want to make all those decisions generally. Obviously, there's exceptions, but that's generally when you come to fix that for her, she's just so relieved. But then she's got a habit she can't get over. And again, the world is doing this on a huge scale. The fatherless home, you got to have a mother, but you don't necessarily got to have a father. And if your mother leaves, your grandmother takes over. And I mean, there's so many grandmothers raising their grandkids because
especially around here.
Almost zero grandfathers raising their grandkids. There's a true picture. There's a hole in the wall. There's the path of least resistance in our world right now is everything mother control, woman control, everything elevating women, promoting women. And in all societies that have done that, it comes full circle to worshiping femininity. In all different ways, history has shown all different empires have ended up worshiping femininity. And we're headed that way. And the church, the question was about the church. Well, are we leading the way? We are 100% not. It's very hard to get people to do marriage God's way. In my opinion, building a friendship, the minute a couple meet and they go have sex or they get physical kissing, they've just blown their ability to become friends.
Well, I wanted to get into that actually because marriages come from dating relationships, right? And I wanted to just really quick go into dating relationships in Christianity and ask kind of the same question. What are we doing as Christians with dating relationships? Is it any different than the dating we see in the rest of the world?
Well, I just want to just back up for 1 second to clarify what he said, because it could be misunderstood. Lots of times it's a male-dominated marriage, and the woman is because in Christianity it's submission. A wife, submit, to your husband as you submit to Jesus and stuff. But the truth is, it becomes just a patriarchal society where we all serve the father, and the mother has no role, no say, no life. The truth is, in Christianity, it really is 100%. You give 100%. You make the way we see it and say it is that Jesus is on the throne of your life, and then your spouse is next, and then your kids, and then everyone else, and then you. So in the Christianity circle, I've seen many women beaten down by their husbands. Insecurity, lack of just giving his life away, and you're there to serve me because you need to submit to me. And that's like not what he's saying at all.
Fear of being controlled, right?
Correct. So the husband is very controlling.
Okay.
So and the wife can be very controlling. So neither one of them are correct. And but in Christianity, oftentimes a husband he gets a misunderstanding or has women issues, and he says, "Submit to me." And once a man says submit to you, you probably should run, honestly, because that's like a red flag. If you're demanding submission, it's probably a very unhealthy way to do it. Yeah. So I just want and
you won't get submission.
No,
right.
That'll guarantee you won't get submission.
You'll get slavery.
You'll get a different thing.
You'll get slavery.
Slavery.
And since 1970, we're old enough to be around since the women's movement. I am woman, hear me roar, Helen Reddy. And it's done a lot of damage. I think it's done a lot of good also. I think we were very patriarchal, and I think the women in the Christian church need to rise up. Steve and I have if you come, you'll know that I'm not a shrinking violet, and that's
or if you watch the podcast or anything.
Yeah, anything. If you're around us at all, and that's the credit to him, as he has allowed me to be strong, like he was saying. There's many places in our marriage where I lead. I mean, we would never go on a vacation if it wasn't for me. We would never have people over if you came over. There's just so many things. You would never get a card or, nothing. There's all kinds of places where I know it's my gifting. He allows me to be gifted, and I speak into his life. And there's a correction both ways, and sometimes you go at it with the horns locked, and you just got to work it out.
Let me say this. I believe that the truly submitted woman, when a woman is submitted biblically to a man who is right, that woman has way more power than any other woman around.
Correct.
That submission to the right kind of man who is looking to also be submitted his life to Jesus Christ. You can trust me to be a Christian. You can trust me to hear God. That means you'll be treated wonderfully.
She's well loved.
Yeah, well loved, and
protected.
she has so much power.
Yep.
It's never a power trip. The submission, or it's the man is expected to lay his life down as Christ laid his life down for the church, and the woman is expected to submit. And that causes the woman to be more powerful, not less. Her giftings to be seen more, not less. Anyway, I just wanted to add that.
What I love, and I know you asked a question and we haven't got to it yet, but
that's all right.
What I see at the Father's house and the marriages here is very strong women.
Very strong.
Very strong leaders. And so I think we talked about last week, the husband has to sometimes, he's way behind her in spiritual maturity. He has to start sprinting to kind of get around her a little bit so he can protect her. And I see really healthy marriages at the Father's house with strong men and women leaders. Because the truth is, if a man is not strong, if Steve wasn't strong, I would lead, like he's talking about, and it would be unhealthy in every area. I would be controlling and lead, and I would lead. And if so, it's biblically the Lord wants the man to be the priest of the home. And a strong Christian marriage is where they both are well loved and well protected, and they both submit one to another. And I am great because my husband's loved me. If you would have known me in the 20s, you would not recognize who I was today, because believe it or not, I was not confident. And and I didn't know my mind. And honestly, we laugh about it. It was pretty much back then. It was anything Steve said. It was my thought. And he probably liked it back then. But and then around the 30s, because he loved me so well, 7, 8 years, I started, and 30s too, I started knowing my mind a little bit more and becoming a confident woman. But today in my 60s, I pretty much can conquer almost any mountain put in front of me because of love of Steve and knowing who I am. So. And now you can. I just wanted to back up because I want to make sure.
No, that's very good, because I know you guys. I know your heart, but people listening might be listening for the first time to hear some of this stuff. It's pretty. That's why we call it the uncommon truth, right? Because it's not things that really are politically correct to talk about. It's not really things that most churches talk about, but it is. This is a subject that this affects people's daily life
so much,
and really like. A marriage is something that Jesus used. He talked about marriage, and the New Testament talks a lot about marriage as kind of like a symbol of how you relate to God, right? And Jesus calls the church his bride. So if we're not understanding marriage, we're probably misunderstanding a lot of the New Testament and what it takes to be Christians, right?
That's right. So it's such a important conversation in the Christian church. Because, like I said, I've been a Christian 41 years, and I've seen some really dysfunctional marriages because of the control of the husband, the improper control, or the control of the improper control of the wife.
Right.
So it's really a dance.
And so you're saying that just because you're a Christian doesn't mean your marriage is going to be perfect?
Absolutely, correctly, 100%.
Christian divorce rate is so high now.
Yeah.
I went ahead and looked up the numbers. It's exactly the same.
There's not a difference.
The last study in the Barna group, which is studies specifically faith groups and compares to culture.
Wow.
Exactly the same.
Wow. That's tragic.
It's like what's happening here when we know the stats with fatherlessness and what happens.
So sad. So
and
selfish.
Yet it's still going on.
Yeah, the divorce rate is based on selfishness.
Yeah.
Period.
And there's a lot of other things tied with divorce. I think, was it in the 70s or 80s that no-fault divorce passed the Supreme Court? You can just decide to get divorced,
We're not
right?
going to even venture a guess because you've been right last time.
Okay.
So we're going to go ahead with the 80s,
We'll
right?
say somewhere
You're
around
right.
there. Maybe as late as the early 90s. I can't
Whatever
remember.
you say.
Whatever you say. You're that Wikipedia.
You know I'm going to go back at the end of the
we
show
know that.
and we'll look.
So
and
we don't
I'll
want
update you next week.
the next one to say, well, I was right. And they were wrong.
Well, I mean, I think I've been cured for that
Because we ambushed you.
Yeah, the
good.
ambush. Maybe next time
We don't agree on anything.
I won't let our producers Yos and Luke in on the secret, so they
don't let it out.
Yeah, I let Yos know at the end of last week's episode about John Denver. And,
He came right up to
and
me
he came to you guys
Friday morning and told me I was wrong.
You sent me a text.
Yeah,
I did, but you guys never
like
responded.
within 10
so.
seconds. I never respond
because we
to
want to
text.
ambush you.
Yeah.
I never respond to text.
Remember, he doesn't respond.
Right.
Oh boy, for the love of the Lord.
Well, so Vicky, you said something about dating relationships, or you said something about the marriages that are here at the Father's house.
Yes.
And our marriage came, like we were married before we came here, but there's a lot of people here that met and dated, and the two of you guys counseled the couple, and now they have a strong marriage. Well, I guess Steve counseled the couple.
He doesn't want me there. I don't know why.
But now we see the strong marriages that come from that. And I want to know, what's the difference between dating in the world sense and dating in the discipleship Father's house?
The Father's house is totally different than anywhere else I know.
Okay, so tell me about it.
So we're back to chaperoning. We're back to accountable dating, which is you got to be accountable for every time you're with that
And
girl.
these are the people that come to you and say, I want a marriage like you.
Yeah.
So I'm going to do it like you say. Right?
Will you help? Yeah.
Yeah, it's only will you help. We don't. If you're going to our church or not, and you're dating someone, we're not going to say you need to do it this way. It's only the people who say, I like so and so's marriage. I've seen the fruit of these marriages, and I like this girl. Will you help me?
Yeah.
Walk me through this.
That's a good clarification.
So
yeah.
they come and they say, I kind of like this girl, or the girl says, whichever. And I say, then what you got to do is you find out where she's going to be. Like there's so many different gatherings, game night, we're having a pizza night, we're having a movie night,
Bonfire night.
yeah, bonfire, and you just make sure you're in the same general vicinity as her, and get to know her, listen to her talk, watch her, go over and say hi to her, and be friends, and just and it's a considerable amount of time. It's months of just putting yourself in that position. Almost always the girl comes to me and said, I notice Luke is paying more attention to me, like I noticed so-and-so's paying
Shout
attention
out to Erica.
to me. It's kind of seems like he kind of likes me, and I don't know what to do. What am I supposed to do?
Have you put him up to this?
Yeah, so I usually ask them, is there interest? I mean, is your interest piqued? Yeah. And so then we go, and then they say, they go and they ask, the guy asks the girl, are you interested? I'm interested in you more than a friend. And so I'd like to, ask you if you want to be my girlfriend. And she says yes. And they come to me and we talk about kind of the rules of campus dating.
Yeah.
Here we're not going to have sexual immorality on the camp. So we set up a system of rules about where they can be. They can never be in a car alone. They can never be in a house alone. There's always got to be a third party. And when they're alone, they got to be under the lights, out in plain view. Anybody could walk around the corner, or anybody can see them. And so they're alone a lot. And it goes on for 6 months or so. And they don't hold hands. They don't kiss. They don't do anything physical. It's building a friendship based on an agreement that we like each other.
Yeah.
And it's remarkable what do you do? If you're not kissing and you're not holding hands and you're not talking about your future together, what do you do? Luke could come over and tell us, what do you do? You have conversations. You actually talk to each other, and you base the very foundation of this relationship, if it were to ever go to marriage, they had to talk to each other.
Yeah.
If you counsel people who are having trouble in their marriages, it's almost always the communication problem. So we start with communication, not sex. As soon as someone has sex, they don't talk anymore. I mean, they don't talk the same if they don't.
What happened to us?
If they don't have a foundation.
I'm just kidding.
If they
Wow, we went there.
if they don't have a foundation of
everybody.
talking, if they aren't friends, they've just kind of blown the ability to ever become friends. So this.
Makes it a lot harder
Yes.
to work back.
And
to
each
that.
thing, like it's, I really want to tell her I love her. So before we can do that, you have to sit down and talk about your past. We have people with some horrendous past, and we have some people that have no past when it comes to relationships. And so they share all these things to make sure before they move into the physical nature of a relationship. And I'm telling you, touching hands for a guy that's been having to walk with a girl for 3 or 4 months and not been able to touch her and hold hands or anything, that first handhold it completely changes the world, especially if you've liked her that long. And so then they start that kind of thing where they're holding hands. He puts his arm around her. They sit next to each other. They're talking. They're saying, they're now talking about liking each other, and it moves on into, I want to say I love her, and I want to tell her, okay, if you guys have talked about your past and you don't have any problem with where he's been, prison, and all the things he's done in life, you're willing to let those, you're willing to have
Born
that
again.
baggage with you. That's his experience, and this is your experience. You've shared them. Then let's move forward. And they start, they've started making it an event where they go down by the lake, say, I love you, hold hands, look into their eyes, almost like a proposal. But
It's usually an engagement. Lots of times it's engagement.
yeah, sometimes. And then a little more time goes, they start kissing, and you really got to keep asking, well, how are you handling kissing? Because the guy just goes banana boats. He goes nutcase, and the girl is pretty starstruck too. And it's just a wonderful step-by-step movement into a marriage.
They're allowing other people into basically to make sure that they're safeguarded.
That they're pure, and they'll tell you, man, there's no safeguards. I mean, that could they if we weren't doing this, they would just be absolutely crazy. I've even had a poly purebred girl that never ever kissed or ever anything, just it's like a drug. It comes over me. I'm so glad we're out in the open. I don't know. I wouldn't be able to stop him if we were in private. You know, it's kind of funny. It's like a drug. I mean, like that's kind of what I was telling you. When you approach love correctly, it's like a drug, and it's towards this end where they finally propose and start to plan their wedding. And we start having counseling sessions, and we have 6 or 7 counseling sessions about the difference between males and females, and what's expected of you as in the.
And these are people that you've actually known, both of them, for a long time. It's not just like, hey, can you do our wedding, and then we'll have 6 or 7 counseling sessions.
I don't do those, and I don't do dating for people I don't know. But I walk them through this whole thing. Every time they're alone, they text me. They tell me we're alone, and when they're done being alone,
the guy does.
When they're done being alone, they let me know they're not alone anymore. And it's just accountability. Somebody knows we're here, and they make it to the wedding without failure and without sexual immorality.
It's amazing.
And they come to the wedding, and every single time a miracle occurs, the two become one flesh. In our weddings, we ask, is it God's will that you get to married? What's the reason you're getting married? Is it love, or is it God's will? Hopefully it's both. But the most important one is God's will for your life. Is it God's will for your life to marry this person? And they always say yes. All of them have said yes so far anyway. And so then they go into marriage, and I tell them, tomorrow morning, you're going to feel different because of the way you did this, the process you used to get here.
Yeah.
And they're always shocked because, they never did dating, especially the guys in the world, the guys from LRM and them. They never did dating like this. It was always first night they met them, they're in bed with them, and they have a relationship for a month, and then they break up because they're miserable. And because they went all the way first, they never had a chance to even learn how to talk. And so I have to tell you, it's 100% success rate in people coming back to me and saying, I am so fortunate that I submitted to this process of dating that you. Yeah. And I feel so much more equipped to have a relationship with a member of the opposite gender,
Yeah.
And it's shocking. I tell them, tomorrow morning, you're going to feel different. Me and Vicky went to Hawaii and kind of intersected with a honeymooning couple recently. I'd done their wedding last Saturday. About 8-9 days later, we were having lunch with them in Honolulu. And I just said, okay, I want you to share with me how you felt. And the young woman, she just nailed it. She just said, I'm so shocked to find out that all my life I've never been whole. I am completed by this marriage. For the first time in my life, I feel like a complete person, that my capabilities are expanded. I have a confidence. All the things I've always known I could do, now I have a confidence that I can do them.
That's right.
I was stunned because her words put together were exactly what I was trying to tell them all. Tomorrow morning, it's going to be you're going to feel different. You're going to feel connected because in this wedding ceremony, God did such an incredible miracle.
That's right.
He made the two become one. You are knit together, your soul. It's like he had a knitting needle and he knitted you together, sewed you together at the soul. And your souls are forever knit together. That's when Jesus says, let no man tear asunder. That's what it means. Just let no man tear those souls apart ever again, right? Do you have something?
I like the weddings. I like the marriages. I like the courtship here at the Father's house. I mean, there's only 2 things going to happen. You start dating someone, you're either going to get break up or you're going to get married. There's no other options. And so if it doesn't work out, you haven't invested any of physical nature. You just take it so slow, and that's why we take it so slow. We've had a few of those, for lack of a better word, false starts where they just said, and it's hard. It's hard for one or the other, but they're still here, and they're
not destroyed.
They're not destroyed, and they've gone on to find out who God has for them.
That's right.
And I love. Sometimes Steve will go to the man, and it's always the man who's being accountable, because we believe the man needs to pursue, and he'll say to him, so you and so broke up, and they're like, we didn't break up, and he goes, well, you haven't gone out, you haven't texted me, so I just presumed that you probably broke up. You
haven't been alone with her in a while.
You haven't been alone, and the guy starts laughing, and of course it's a point well taken. You are not good with your accountability, and Steve's watching, and it's good for Papa Bear to be watching over, the prized possession of his daughters, and we really do look at these girls as daughters and sons, but we're going to protect the woman. And I look at the marriages now. There's, there was a marriage that was, I think Amy and Sean are like almost 20, and Jordan and Steph were getting towards 20 and
17, I think.
yeah, and the people coming behind them, and they're friends.
Yeah.
They're friends, and they love Jesus, and they're giving their life away, and they get it. We're 41 years, almost 41 years.
Yeah.
In a few days, actually in a few days.
Yeah.
We're gonna have a DJ for our anniversary.
You have your grandson.
Yeah. So
what a
yeah.
gift.
Yeah, he's a cutie. So
I thought you meant we're going to have a DJ and dance.
That would be nice.
oh, that'd be fun.
Disc jockey.
Did you want to marry me again? Should
Oh,
we do a wedding?
I would love to marry you.
Let's do it. You guys all heard that. We're gonna do another wedding.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Great.
I'll do the
Next week on the
premarital
podcast.
counseling.
There you
You'll
go.
do our
I'll do the premarital counseling.
I don't think I want that.
I'll tell you what. This time I'll do it right, though.
So
Anyway.
I wanted to ask you a little bit, just quickly, what are some stories of like how you've grown in this? Because you didn't just happen to walk into a perfect marriage. You didn't have a father's house in your life growing up.
We did not have a Steve Orsillo and Vicky Orsillo in our
Right.
life.
So, but your marriage is great now. How did that grow?
So we really were buddies. I mean,
Yeah, fun.
when we met, I was 15 and she was 14. We have the same set of cousins at a wedding, and so she's there, came with her cousins, and they happen to be my cousins. So we start
Not
Cousins
related
of
at all.
cousins,
No
yeah.
blood. No
so
blood.
we start talking, and immediately, I mean, it was 15 seconds. Her and I were best friends, and that's we got married when we were 20, almost 23. And to be fair, I was almost 16. I think a couple of days from being 16 when we met, and so we got married a
I was
couple
21,
days.
almost 22. You were 22, almost 23.
Yeah, so I was 22. So you can do the math. That's 6 years later. We're married, but we wrote letters. We didn't have this chaperoning thing, and
Probably should have sometime.
Well, I would have blown it completely. It was Vicky who made it so we didn't blow it, and but all of it was just friendship. We went to that same cousin's wedding a few years later in Idaho. We intersected again. She lived across the country.
Mm-hmm.
First she lived in Chicago and I lived in Sacramento, and then she lived in Spokane. Both too far for a weekend trip.
Yep.
So we just wrote. I would call from time to time, and it was just this friendship, always this immediate friendship. And so that's where I learned. I mean, I was sitting in our aunt's living room. I was staying at the aunt's house. Vicky comes to visit her aunt over to see me because I'm there with our cousins. And I'm looking across the room, and it just dawns on me. What other human on earth have I ever had such instant friendship and liked this much as a human being? And also felt this incredible feeling. I suddenly realized that I've always loved her, but didn't really know what love was, so didn't know what it felt like. But because we were such instant friends, it was such an easy relationship. And that's where I learned this. Over the years, I'm counseling people. I mean, I don't want to tell people what to do. I don't want to do this kind of stuff. And yet God called me to it, so I better get better at it. And so I really used our template. I didn't read any books. I just looked at it and said, if this girl comes and starts making out with you and you break up with her, even though you didn't go all the way, she feels she's been robbed. I mean, it's a tearing on a girl.
Yeah.
Guys is like you just wash your mouth with, rag
Listerine.
and it's over. You just rinse your mouth out and it's over. You forget immediately. Guys are so callous in this thing. But girls are giving themselves, even in kissing, even in, in hand holding, they're giving themselves. There's a connection. Mm-hmm. And so I realized, that once you start doing that, you stop connecting on the friendship level, on the personality level, to learn. You don't even know each other if you don't do this.
Well, you need that building block first,
Correct.
right?
And so that's where I designed this and started doing it. And it's been, I also have a live-in staff community. I have 100 people or more in full-time ministry living in this community. There's no way to keep track of everybody.
Yeah.
And in most of these Christian communities in the 21st century, there's a lot of sexual immorality. There's a lot of pregnancy before marriage. There's a lot of, they did not make it to their wedding day. Their honeymoon was not their first time, being.
Yeah, there's stats on that too.
Yeah.
It's pretty similar.
Unclothed together. So few make it to the wedding without having been together. Mm-hmm. And here at the Father's House Church, we are pretty sure we've had zero.
Wow.
We've had zero failure. And I began to think, so some of those desires for me to help people, because I know if I was in their shoes, I'd want to be jumping in the girl's bed. Back when I was that, young kid full of vim and vinegar, and I saw this girl that was like, va, 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 voom, like, whoa, she got everything, I'd want to sneak in. And so I wanted to create an atmosphere that helped them win, helped them succeed. Now, when you interview the girls, how did it make you feel as a woman that this man was not trying to take something from you before it was legal? Every one of them, they're shocked at how it made. They would have not even known that they were going to feel this way.
Yeah.
But they feel like, wow, I felt so protected and so respected. I felt loved for me and who I am. And I think that all of those things is what I'm aiming at when I started this process of accountable dating. And it's kind of funny when we tell visitors, we practice accountable dating here. They think we're from Mars. They immediately start going with the cult thing,
Yeah.
It's like, well, we want to help you not sin.
Yeah.
I definitely never want to create an atmosphere where sinning is easy or that it's blasé, that I don't care if you sin. I definitely care. My intention is to never sin again, and I'm trying to teach them to never sin, to at least make it their intention to do right. So that's how we got better at this. That's how we built it, is with and the idea of sons and daughters we shared about earlier, trying to make them be sons and daughters. Every father would treat them this way.
Yeah.
Every father should treat their children that way.
I can't even imagine. I got 3 daughters.
Oh yeah,
that's going to be a rough 10 years right
it's
there.
It's going to be
that 10-year period of when they're 40 and they're allowed to start dating.
40. Oh, I think you had a little bit earlier than that biological clock. If you
we'll
want
get
grandkids,
maybe we'll get that into.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I do want grandkids.
So
so you're gonna have to move off the 40, bud.
Yeah, you
Right.
might.
Well, I got to say that for another episode. I'm not ready. For that.
It's crazy.
Yeah, you got a newborn. I don't think we got to worry about grandkids.
Let me just say something though, because I'm going to be really, really honest.
How about you don't? I'm kidding. Go ahead.
No.
Would you please lie to us?
No, I think there's some people who actually, they're listening, who did it wrong, who are married and they did it wrong. And we did not have Steve and Vicky in our courtship, and we got married in a fever, hotter than a peppered sprout.
Hotter than a peppered sprout.
And Steve quoted it to me.
I know that's Johnny Cash.
That's Johnny
you can't
Cash.
Tell me
Steve quoted me the reason we should get married because it's better to marry than to burn with passion. And I was only a Christian a few months. So, I mean, we made it, but it was,
by the skin of your
thank
teeth,
God our wedding was like July 8th. Let's just say that. It was tough, right? We were together. But Steve came back to me years later, and he said, I am so sorry that I didn't be the priest and didn't do what you needed me to do. And I just started weeping because I'd only been a Christian 2 months. I was holding the line. I knew what we needed to do, and and sex is a very powerful thing. It's it's the analogy of the fire in the fireplace is beautiful. It warms you, keeps you it's a beautiful glow. But once the fire gets out of the fireplace, it's just does so much damage. So he came back to me years later, and I think probably 25 years later.
A lot of years.
A long time. And I just started weeping, and I had no idea that was even in there. So if you're hearing me and you guys have done it wrong, and maybe your intimacy is not what you want it to be, or maybe your wife is not what you wanted her to be, or maybe your husband's not who you want him to be,
or your friendship isn't
there, and your sex life is not what you want it to be. If you're being convicted by this, you might want to go to your husband or wife and just say, and for me, he came to me because he's a priest at our home, and it made a difference in me. It really made me feel settled in my identity. So we're being real. Yeah. And so we're gonna be real. And what we've learned from the way we did it. But it's so funny because your sister-in-law is dating right now, and Kevin just heard the story the other day about us because I got saved on May 2nd. We were engaged by May 3rd, 4th. May 4th. We were married by July 8th. I mean, so they hear this that week, was it 2 months? 2.5 months?
Ours was a foregone conclusion. Yeah. There wasn't anyone else on earth
so it was like, it was like crazy, but they hear the story and they're like, so Steve got married 2.5 months after you got engaged, and they start laughing. I said, you should go talk to him about that.
Really
I'm sure he really would like,
either.
It was 2?
2+ like a couple of days.
Yeah.
2 and a few
I
days.
said, I think you should go, Kevin, I think you should go talk to him about that. I'm sure he'd really appreciate that, that you want to do the Steve Orsillo way. I'm sure that yeah, go. And they're like, no, I don't want to do that.
No, you don't.
No, you don't.
No,
but we didn't have anybody, and there was no mentoring and accountability. And I love the marriages at the Father's house. I love it. And everybody that has gotten married, is, like he said, the ones that were like, the guys out there that were just in the drug community, that, sex was so free flowing. And to see them when they start talking to a girl who's very, very pure by the world standards, they don't even know what to say.
Yeah, no
They're
idea.
so intimidating.
Yeah. I remember Nick
It is
Zeppi,
funny
he was
watching.
the first time he could talk to Jessica at a picnic.
Their pastors here, yeah.
Yeah, and he goes up to he goes up to her and he says something really goofy, like at the picnic, like, "Oh my gosh, we're out of forks," and walks
And
away.
then just walks away.
He
yeah.
didn't even, she looks at him like, "What?" And he
was so embarrassed.
He was so embarrassed, thought he felt like a dork,
Yeah.
So it's fun. It's fun to see what
his
the
would be a
newness of
great
Jesus.
scene in a movie.
Oh, he was so goofy.
How to be dumb.
Yeah.
It's a great equalizer, yeah.
Yeah.
But what happens is, like his wife, all the others, like Johnny, and there's so many, they really went after their minds. I am not going to think of her like that.
Yeah.
Sister.
And they were accountable. I'm really having a hard time not imagining what the honeymoon's going to be like. And they had accountability partners that helped them get through. And they would arrive at their wedding and they would actually let their wives know, I have not even thought of this. For like,
They were
I think
nervous.
it was Nick, 700 days.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have not let myself think of being with you.
Wow.
And all of them have a different number, right? Like I was in control for 300 days, and I was able to overcome the temptation
Good.
to want to lust after you or anyone else and allow myself this. And I realized that doing this was loving you, and I did it to love you. And the real incredible victory is in the women. They're like, wow, this man is doing such an incredible, heroic thing for me.
Yeah,
right.
it sets that foundation for when you get to the marriage. You talk about, I know your fingers are kind of messed up, but you talk about it shouldn't be both of us bending in opposite,
Correct.
We should both be laying our lives down for each other, right?
Correct.
And so if you're watching on YouTube, it's
this.
one pointing to each other,
Not
right?
this.
Yeah.
It's not everybody going the husband's way and doing his will. It's not everybody doing the wife's will.
In
And
our
it's
marriage,
definitely not everybody going for the kids.
Right.
It's you're laying your lives down for each other. And
in our marriage, our favorite person is her.
True.
That's what this means.
yeah.
But
You're such a goofball.
when I'm her favorite person,
Every
it's like
now
this,
and then, huh?
and she's mine.
Oh boy.
Oh, on those days when it's like this,
Yeah.
Luke, can you see us for
bliss.
counseling? Steve needs some inner healing.
Heaven bliss, heavenly bliss.
Good thing our producer is great at prayer counseling.
Yeah, he's gonna see.
Yeah,
the
but
life
he's
forms
also
here.
in
We'll just turn
dating
off the
right
mics
now.
and we'll just do that. So
He's in accountable dating, and he'll need my favor soon.
okay.
The truth is that it's just fun. It's to have somebody that's with you. There's so many people coming in and out of my life in my years, and to have somebody with you, to do. And we just really love to be together. And we did not put the kids to be number one. And lots of Christian marriages, I see it. It's like universal. The kids decide everything. The world revolves around the kids. And we made a priority to start going away with each other, and made it really special right away. It was we started before Danielle was born. She was actually conceived on a getaway in Hawaii.
Uh-oh.
So we had to go to Hawaii, but we went away for a week at a time.
That was a good trip.
And just really made a priority of just lavishing our love on each other. Because you forget who each other are. You're in the trenches with these three small kids.
I'm in the trenches.
You're in the trenches right now. We're in the trench too. We still have a small, hairy man living with us.
Yeah, we don't have an empty nest.
But anyway, we still do that. We still go away. We make that a priority because that's what.
And that's what you call having your throne in order, right?
Correct.
And I want to link that. We don't have enough time to go into what that means, but we do have some really good teachings on that.
Check
so
it
I'm
out.
going to link some of those on YouTube underneath in the show descriptions. And also, your son-in-law Derek gave a really great teaching
best
about
I've
what
heard.
it means for husbands to love their wives and wives to submit to their husbands.
Verse 25.
It's a great sermon, and I'm going to link both of those. So if your interest is piqued in this conversation, you can go and check out a little bit more of that. And I'm sure we'll get back into it. If you do have questions about this, there's a lot of things we didn't cover. But if you have questions, you can email me. I'll put my email address down there too. And if you want to share the show with somebody else,
Please
go to
do.
uncommonpodcast.com. We got a lot of new listeners, so
Good. Welcome.
go ahead and leave us
Shout
a
out
review
to
and
Switzerland.
share it with your friends. Yeah.
Priska Hugh.
We got Switzerland.
Yeah.
Nice.
Priska Hugh.
Okay. Hi,
Change
Priska.
your life. Yeah.
So appreciate you guys listening, and that's it. We'll see you again next week.
Have a great week.
Thanks,
All right.
guys.